Hello everybody and welcome into the Grindstone Developments Truck Series live, kicking off another season here tonight. And what better way to do it than at Legacy Texas Motor Speedway? We've got a good one in store for you. A little bit of a crazy start to the season. We've got a lot to talk about, and you notice the broadcast here overlay is going to look a little different tonight as well, and we'll get into all that. Before we do, let's get the music turned down and get right down trackside and into tonight's starting grid. And you'll notice we're going to see a lot of returning names here this season. And of course, some of these guys still chasing that first championship. Some of them have been here, done that before. But the man who's going to sit on the pole for the first race of the season here tonight is none other than the 47 of Randy Sample. Bryce Rayner will roll off to his outside in second. It's going to be John Legger back in third. Harley Barletta, he makes a return this season. Now that we're back in the trucks, he'll roll off on the outside of row number 2 here tonight. Brad Thacker in that number 56 truck. He'll roll off from the 5th spot. How about last season's champion, Jason Nethery? He's going to have a little bit of work to do tonight. He'll roll off from the outside of row number 3 and 6th. Brian Hyde back in 7th. It's going to be Tyler Meeks starting in 8th. Jason Machad 9th, and David Palmer rounding out your top 10. And the last man who will start in the first race of the season here tonight is the 51 of Charles Whitehead. He will roll off in 11th. All right, let's get you a look at the race info. Big difference here tonight, specifically with the track and car combo. We have now made our way back to the Truck Series, and we're back at the mile and a half here tonight, kicking it off with Legacy Texas Motor Speedway, and we'll talk about the difference between that and the new one in just a moment. But the distance we're going to run here tonight, 80 laps, that breaks down to 120 miles. 100% fuel, 2 sets of tires as always. You do have that one fast spare in the back pocket, fixed setups, and 2 green-white checkers if you were to need them. Texas Motor Speedway, again, a mile and a half in length. Look at the track temp here tonight. 127 degrees starting out, so it is warm. To make this thing a little bit slick for these guys, especially on those cold tires. Weather outside, 78 in the sim. Partly cloudy skies and wind not going to be a factor. With that, we're ready to get going here. New season, but back to the old ways. The Truck Series is finally back, and what a better way to get started than at Texas Motor Speedway. Green flag in the air. We are underway. Clean start out of the gate as the field rockets out of turn 2 for the first time tonight into the lead. The 47 of Randy Sample, he holds everybody at bay. It's going to be a lot of 2x2 here, especially in the early couple of laps. See the 87 of Bryce Rayner trying to make this outside work. You notice the asphalt here at Old Texas looking a little bit more warm. Again, there was a lot of differences in this track, but one of the big ones to take note of here tonight, turn 1 and 2, is actually very similar to 3 and 4. That's how it used to be set up at Old Texas, so that outside line certainly still going to be viable. You see Bryce Rayner using that to his advantage. Man, big slip up on the inside. That was John Legger in the 19. He had to catch it coming off the turn 2. Big save, though. Field now going to start to single file out here just a little bit as they work off at turn number 4. Already 3 laps in the books, and pit stops are going to be a topic of conversation here tonight. The big question, of course, as always, is are we going to see them under green, or do we see a caution at some point to give these guys that opportunity? So far, so good, though. Brad Thacker quick to settle himself into that 5th spot at the moment. Jason Nethery still chasing from behind, but we've got a battle for the lead setting up here. Randy Sample under fire. You see the 87 of Bryce Rayner was trying to see if he could get a nose to the inside. Nothing doing there. Now he'll look back to the outside. Watch out. Here comes the 31 of Harley Barletta. He's got to run up top. And man, oh man, this pack now back to 2x2, making about 3 rows deep. Whoa. Sample way out of the groove. He gets into the marbles. That's going to allow Rayner, and really this entire group, to get around. New leader of the 87. And he's going to have to catch it and try to regroup. Man, that was certainly not the way he had that going. But for Bryce Rayner here, we talked about not winning that championship last season, but he certainly had a fair amount of wins under his belt. And he is no stranger to these trucks. Fending off, though, the 19 of Legger, who's going to take another dive to the inside. Not quite going to do it. And I know it's early in the run, but boy, we talked about that hot track temp. I think clean air here tonight is going to be more important than arguably we might see all season. Once these tires wear out, man, these guys are going to start to struggle. And you know, you look back here, and we talked about the racing at the front of the pack, but really it continues all the way back to about 10th place We see Charles Whitehead in the 51. He's got the Delaware Life paint scheme on board, and he's chasing after Brian High and the Fox's Pizza sponsor, Tyler Meeks, and the 46 of Jason Machado, all up here as well. And there's the 34 of Jason Ethery, who we just mentioned, last season's champ, looking to see if he can maybe go back-to-back here and grab a title in the trucks. And man, for, really all these guys, and in fact, before we talk about it, let's actually hop on board here for a lap around Texas Motor Speedway. Break this down for you here, talking about the speeds that these guys run here. Texas has always been a fast track. But with that increased banking here on the Legacy Oval, turn 1 and 2, check this out. These guys not getting much below about 170, about 165 miles an hour is about the slowest they go. And you're going to see a pretty similar setup as they get over here to turn 3 and 4. And there's for Bryce Rayner, the little lift out of the gas, gets down again to about the mid-160s, but that's about the extent of it. So very rhythm-based here. A lot of these guys, though, just trying to be careful early, managing the tires. You certainly don't want to wear your stuff out. Looking at fuel mileage in these trucks, again, assuming these guys are on 100% fuel, I would say they could make it somewhere right around, let's say 30 to 50. Nah, that's a little bit too broad of a window. These guys, I would think, can make it to at least 40 laps if we are on 100% fuel. The question's going to be somewhere between 40 and 50, maybe just over 50, I think would be kind of the max. And when you come in, obviously you're going to take 4 tires, but talk so much about trying to get yourself in that track position ahead of time, and these top 3 are kind of getting that look like they're maybe setting up to try to pull away here from everybody else. 47, Randy Sample, though, has been able to dial that truck back in. He settled into a 4th. Remember, he did lose 3 positions right out of the gate on that first lap. So you've got about the top 8 now, all still running within about 2.5 seconds of each other. And all that leaves is Meeks, Whitehead, and Brian High, all trying to chase. And for Meeks, it looks like maybe getting held up just a little bit here. Looks like he's trying to see if he can find a little bit of clean air there down the straightaway, but the 13 not going to give any leeway. For Tyler Meeks, not necessarily the season that he wanted last year. Taking on some extra responsibilities this season, helping to keep this league alive for these guys. I know that he's obviously feeling like he's got a lot to prove, but we've seen him show plenty of talent in the past, so I think it's just going to be a matter of time before we see Meeks grab that first win, as the case for Brian High. Right? I mean, we talked about another driver who's kind of that underdog, especially when we go to some of the tracks that we're going to be talking about on the schedule this season. But here tonight, just trying to get a feel for things, and he qualified in 7th, still runs an 8th, so not a bad run early for the 13, but man, at the front of the pack, temperature continues to stay on the high side here, even as we are only 11 of 80 laps in the books. Check this out. Still about 5 trucks bumper to bumper, 1 in the wall. Big hit to the outside fence there. That was Brad Thacker in the 56. Looked like that truck may got just a little bit tight on exit of the corner. I don't see any damage on the right side. That's the good news, but man, that was certainly something that's going to catch the attention right there for Brad Thacker. We're going to actually have to rewind this to go back and look at it here. iRacing not picking it up as enough contact to cause any issue. But again, watch this here as they're coming out of turn 4. You're going to see he just gets, I think he's just a little bit tight. See him up there running kind of that second line. About half to a full lane off the bottom, and yeah, it just runs out of room. And man, that wall comes up quick. Big hit for the 56. And I talked about it, but very, very lucky that that does not do more damage. See, he does continue on. We'll have to see if any aero damage that he sustained from that seems to affect him, but man, John Legger still going to work here on Bryce Rayner, both him and Harley Barletta. And for Randy Sample, I wonder if he was saving a little bit of tire when he fell off at the start, because man, this thing is still holding strong. You see Team Conti teammate. So him and Bryce Rayner certainly an association there, but 47 now, going to look for something a little more. Sample looks to the high side and gets a big side draft off of Barletta. That's how the pass, that's how you want to make your passes here. You're going to try to send it off on the inside in the corner or try to grab that right rear on exit. It was a very impressive move there. And the 19 of Sample. Well, if you're just tuning in, you're watching the Grindstone Developments Truck Series. Back for another season. These guys have been in the trucks for quite a while, but if you were tuning in last season, you remember we took a break and tried out the late model stock cars. The Blasted Mills Harley Barletta back in the field tonight. That's just one of the big names that we are seeing return now that we are back in the trucks. But last season's champion, Jason Nethery, he's back in the field here tonight as well. But right now, everybody continues to chase after the 87 of Rayner. Going to be 16 of 80 laps as they cross the line this time. The 19 of Legger trying to see if he can fight back. The 47 of Sample was able to get around him. I'm telling you, I think that this 47 truck was saving something. And he fell back so quickly in that first lap because he has really picked up the pace here. I'm talking about he's closed that gap. And the leader, Bryce Rayner, over just about the last 5 laps. You can see it there pretty significantly. Make the last 3 laps. He's really closed that gap up, and he's got it under a quarter of a second now as they rocket off at turn 4. Big question's going to be when he gets there, though, what kind of move does he make? It's so much for these guys about, we talk about the pitch strategy that's going to come to play later. Man, I showed you the weather when we started this race, and if you missed it, track temp, that is the thing to note here tonight. 131 degrees. It is scorching hot on the racetrack right now, and boy, the hotter it gets, the quicker that grip goes away and the tougher it is to handle these trucks. So far, everybody seems to be able to keep the handling under them. A pretty impressive start. We haven't had any cautions to note of yet. And it actually hasn't been that long since iRacing did add an aero update to these trucks. They're certainly driving a little bit different. One of the big notes that I've been kind of hearing around the sim world is a lot of these guys felt like these trucks get really, really tight now. We'll have to see if that is indeed the case here tonight. Sample here still continuing to chase after the 87 of Bryce Rayner, and just a couple laps from now, we're already going to be a quarter of the way through this one. And they go by quick, but it's kind of a point-setting race. Right as I say that, speaking of points, how about your points champion from last season? Here comes Jason Nethery. He's looking to see if he can sneak a move up on the inside. And Legger briefly goes side by side, but they'll tuck back in line going into turn 3. But this is a point-setting race. Obviously, everybody's kind of on that fresh start. Looking to see what you can do here to kind of get an idea of what you need to work on next week and the season ahead. But, I look at the schedule, and obviously we got a lot more big tracks on the schedule, but you still look at some of the wild cards that I feel like you didn't necessarily have as much of this last season. And for me, I look at tracks like a Michigan, which actually we're going to the Legacy Michigan this season. But then obviously more notably, you go a little bit further down, Daytona, and then Echo Park Speedway. Those two are going to be really anybody could win, right? So obviously it's so important to try to get that first win here early on, get the pace set, get yourself out ahead in points, because we've seen disaster strike at those tracks before. But for Bryce Rayner here tonight, again, everybody on an even playing field here with the fixed setups, but he has got something figured out right now that everybody else seems to be missing. Randy Sample had closed that gap up briefly. In fact, he got it down to, we talked about it, under a quarter of a second, but all of a sudden, not sure if Rayner was saving a little bit of something, or what the deal was, but he has quickly stretched that gap back out. Now over half a second distance between him and Team Conti teammate Randy Sample. As John Legger is still trying to fend off Jason Nethery. Harley Barletta still hanging inside the top 5. Jason Machado, who currently runs in that 6th spot, having a pretty good night himself. In fact, he's one of your bigger movers in the smaller field that we've got here tonight. He's picked up 6 positions from where he started this race at. And again, they're still obviously in the early going, so still a lot of things that are going to have to play out. But I think if you're the 46, you're driving with pretty good confidence right now, knowing that you're doing all the right things here early. Brad Thacker, we mentioned that damage he must have sustained to the right front earlier after that contact. Not very notable, but in fact, it almost looks like it didn't even register there on the right side of that truck. Brian High now making a little bit of a run to the inside. Can the 13 get here down the backstretch? It's not looking like he's going to get there just yet. He'll have to stay in line as they go off into turn 3. Now, one thing I will note, because I'm assuming a lot of these guys probably didn't put in a ton of practice here. The big difference between, of course, Legacy and Newer Texas, we talked about it. That's over in turn 1 where you've got a lot more banking here at Legacy, Texas. We talked about that helps the outside in the early portion of the run, but usually when you get a faster corner like this, it kind of becomes a little bit more of a gridlock in terms of one lane as that run goes on. And Starting to seem like that's the case now as here you go. Finally going to see that move on the inside from the 13 of Brian High. And he'll get clear at Thacker as he shoots it off into turn number 3. So he'll pick up another spot. That now puts Brian High back up to 7. As Thacker looks like maybe starting to really fight the handling of his Ford F-150. It's going to allow the 7 Meeks now to try to creep up. See what he can do here. And man, it's just so tempting here. You want to ship it off in the corner to get that big run, but you got to be so easy trying to get back in the throttle. And you see Meeks right there, just a little bit tight on the exit of the corner. That's going to cost him enough time. And he's going to have to continue to sit single file behind the 56. The Thacker will check back in on that battle in just a moment. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, it is still all the 87. Bryce Rayner leading over Randy Sample. John Legger third. Jason Nethery still chasing back and forth, and it's Harley Barletta rounding out the top 5. Jason Nethery, though, now has closed the gap up between him and Legger. Only about a truck length or two separating them at the moment. It's just such a cat-and-mouse game. And, we talk about the smaller fields. Obviously makes it a little bit easier, not once you get towards the front, because obviously we've seen a ton of battling there. But with the point standings, we've seen what that's done in past seasons as well. That was part of what helped Nethery capture that championship last season, was the idea that, he didn't have the most wins, but he had the most consistency. He was there for the most races, and he got himself in good position, especially at the end of the season when it mattered most. And the significance of that, well, last couple of races when the fields were smaller, all they had to do was finish. He was able to secure that championship. So his first, but for Bryce Rayner, we've obviously seen him take home a championship on the truck side before. And one of the guys he was battling with last time we were in the trucks was, of course, James Harris. He is not going to be running full-time this season. We may see him in a couple runs on the racetrack, and maybe also going to get in here for a couple of races to help commentate up here in the booth. Very impressed with everything those two were able to do last season. As now the battle heating up here between Jason Nethery and John Legger. Nethery looking to the inside here. He's got the run, but he's got to hold momentum on the straightaway here. Legger's going to potentially try to drag him back. No. 19's got enough. Doesn't have to worry about getting too aggressive. And, I know it's early on in the race, but boy, as a driver, this is where sometimes it can get a little bit frustrating, especially if you're the 34 Nethery, because you feel like, hey man, I'm faster than you. Why aren't you letting me by? But talk about any sort of clean air you can get just being so important, and you saw it right there. I mean, that one slip up for the 34 has now maybe cost him a position, much less all the momentum that those two have both lost now. And the 19 of Legger, who they were just chasing down. And with the 31 of Barletta on the outside here, Nethery's going to have to probably tuck in. So a little fight back right there from Harley Barletta to pick that spot back up. So it is now 30 of 80 laps in the books here at Texas Motor Speedway. First race of the season for the Grindstone Developments Truck Series. And we talked about the schedule looking ahead, but boy, just look at it next week. We talk about a whole different combo. We're going to go from, a mile and a half, pretty consistent Texas, to the Tricky Triangle, Pocono Raceway, completely different style of racing, much bigger racetrack. So if you like what you're seeing here tonight, I'll tell you what, we've got another good one in store for you next week. The 34 Nethery was finally able to get back around the 31 of Harley Barletta, so he'll take that position back. We mentioned Machado earlier, up 3 spots from where he started this race at. Nethery's actually picked up 2 positions from where he started this race at. And race leader Bryce Rayner, who qualified second, has of course picked up a position from where he started this race at as well. So the guys that are inside your top 6 contain some of your biggest movers. We had David Palmer set to start this race here tonight. Not sure what the issue was, but see, he has retired, so we're not going to get to see David run here tonight. Hopefully we'll see him next week. And we've got Charles Whitehead currently running in that 10th spot. And looking at the track map here, definitely starting to see some more significant separation between all the cars that are on track here tonight. You see the leader there on the track map coming out of turn 4. Charles Whitehead just now exiting turn 2. So, I think we've still got a ways before this is going to be a top of the conversation. Watch out! Oh, man, big trouble. That's the 41 with big contact. David Palmer and Charles Whitehead. No caution yet. What in the world has happened? Palmer's going to park it. Whitehead's truck is destroyed. Oh, my goodness. What in the world did we just witness? So I just mentioned Palmer, who had supposedly been out of the race here tonight. He wasn't being shown on track, and he hadn't been since the start of the race. I think that was him coming out of the pits, and man, you can really see the damage now. Poor Charles Whitehead was just kind of minding his own business, and looked like Palmer was trying to get up to speed, and I'm not sure if the rear tires just started to slip on him or what, but boy, that's one of the oddest things that I think I have ever seen. Well, we're certainly going to go back and take a look at it, make that a promise, but before we do, just waiting to see here for Charles Whitehead. Looks like he is going to indeed take a fast repair, so he will get back out on track, but that's going to cost him likely at least 2, if not 3 laps. Man, that's a tough break for Charles in his first race. Let's go back and look at this incident, though. Again, one of the more wild things that we have seen here, at least in my time broadcasting for the Grindstone Development Series. And watch this here. Go to the cockpit view of Palmer and take a listen to the RPMs here. This is going to be the real kind of telltale sign here. Yeah, there you go. So he just goes to throttle up, and as he does so, those rear tires start to spin just a little bit. You got to think that's a product of that really, really hot track temp. And as it goes to do that, just starts to send him up the track. And, I mean, man, the timing could not have been worse. It's right as the 51 Whitehead is coming with a great big run. There's nothing Charles can do here, and I'll show you this from the TV1 perspective. I mean, as he goes up, Whitehead's going, what in the world? And, I mean, by that time, contact's made. That's a big shot, too. As you saw Whitehead get kind of sandwiched into the wall, and then the 41 takes a pretty big hit to the right front as well. And man, again, very lucky. There's that second impact off the inside concrete for Charles Whitehead. But lucky for some of these guys up front that did not draw a caution. That would have thrown a wrench in the strategy for sure. Give you one more view of this here. I want to go to the onboard view of Charles Whitehead and show you what I'm talking about when I say just how quickly this happens and where he could not see it. So that's after the incident already occurred. Here you go. All of a sudden, I mean, what do? You can hit the brakes as hard as you want at that point, but it's not going to matter. So the 51 trying to see if he can get one of those laps back. As you see, Brad Thacker now currently in the pits. And so believe this, well, I'm going to say not sure if this is a scheduled stop here with 56, as it looks like he is currently got to come to a halt in the pit lane. So we'll see what the issue is for Thacker here in just a moment. But meanwhile, as we go back live at the front of the field, no change in the lead. Bryce Rayner still out front, dominating. He's now got that lead up to over 2 seconds here. When we cross the line next time, it's going to officially mark the halfway point here in tonight's action. Over a 2-second gap between first and second, more the same between second and third. Nethery continues to try to chase as I think pit stops here maybe starting to kick off. The 13 of Brian High. He's going to bring the Fox's Pizza Den Ford F-150 down to the pits. And so this will be his first and likely only service here tonight. You notice most of these guys making it to this halfway point, so you're definitely going to make it on fuel the rest of the way. And without a caution, certainly no reason that you would want to come in to take another set of tires. So for Brian High here, the call is going to be 4 tires and filled up with gas. He's going to make his way out of the pits now, and that's going to draw on a lot more here. It looks like the trends are being kicked off here. Harley Barletta, Randy Sample, Jason Machad. 3 drivers that come in this time. And boy, interesting strategy play here from Sample. I think this is what you got to do if you're going to have any chance of trying to beat Rayner. You're going to have to short pit him. Just try to worry about playing defense later. We'll see how Rayner responds. I would assume he'd probably pit this next lap. But he doesn't. 87 actually choosing to stay out here. Interesting call from Bryce Rayner. I would have figured that the mindset here would be you just want to make sure you pit 1 lap after everybody else, but you got the fresher tires no matter what. And we'll look at the lap times here, but I can tell you just from experience that there's a big difference in old versus new tires here. So that is certainly going to have some implications here, as at least the way it stands so far, Brad Thacker has made it back onto the racetrack, but he fell 2 laps down. So once again, not sure what that issue was. And for Palmer, it looks like he has now officially made it out to the racetrack as well. So definitely not the start that the 41 of Palmer was looking for here. Is, you know, I marked him. I thought that he was out of this race from the start, but I'm mistaken. Whenever I looked at the scoring tower, it had showed him out, but he did start this race, because you can see he's actually only being scored 6 laps down. obviously still enough that any competitive shot he would have had here tonight is certainly going to come to an end. So Randy Sample has finished up his pit stop and now running his first laps with those fresh Goodyear tires. And look at the lap time difference here. 31.1 for Sample, and we go up here to Bryce Rayner. 32.9. So that is almost a 2-second difference worth of fall off between new and old tire here. Is Rayner going to bring it in this time? Looks like he is. See him downshifting, getting that thing wound up. So sure enough, he'll make it down below the commitment cone without any issues. Looks like after Bryce Rayner, it's just Tyler Meeks who'll have to make his pit stop. He's actually going to do so this time as well. So the 7 brings it into pit. Looks like we were waiting for a minute there on Jason Nethery, but he brought it in as well. So that's going to put everybody back on the lead lap now, at least all the guys that were on the lead lap before the pit cycle started. And for the 87 Rayner here, I am so curious to see where he comes out on track. Here comes the 47, rocketing off turn 4. He's going to have a run. Yeah, the 47 of Sample is definitely going to get by Rayner, but I'm not sure how much he's really going to gain in terms of a gap once he does get by. There goes the 47. Rayner still getting up to speed here. So it looks like for Randy Sample, that gap's probably going to be somewhere between about 3, maybe 4 seconds. I don't think it's going to get to that. Probably about 2 to 3 seconds here. As now Bryce Rayner is basically back up to full pace here. It'll take him a lap to get those tires warmed up and start really setting down some quick laps. But again, I like the call here for Sample. And then, you figure we're going to be coming to 35 laps to go when we cross the line next time. You got to try something here, but I still think that's just going to be too many laps here to try to fend off a guy on 2 to 4 lap fresher tires. Harley Barletta currently settled in that 3rd spot, chasing after the 87 Rayner. John Legger back in 4th. And it's Brian High currently rounding out the 5th spot. Well, it has been relatively calm and clean so far here tonight. We had that one big issue with David Palmer and Charles Whitehead, but outside of that, pit stop's complete. It's going to be a race to the finish. Randy Sample trying to hold off his teammate. We'll see if he can do it when we come back. We're going to go side by side. Stick with us here at Texas.
I played a couple of simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
But you feel like you're really driving, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
Green flag is in the air. We are racing.
3 by 3.
Almost no trouble. Around goes Alex Hill. On into the outside wall goes Hill. They're wrecking big time out back. We're not going to throw a caution. Finish. Who gets it in the line? Cody Nagels wins it in Talladega.
Welcome back to Texas Motor Speedway with the Grindstone Developments Truck Series. First race of the season for these guys. And by the way, as always, if you are interested, you can join anytime. All you got to do is join the Discord, and we do have the link to that in the description of this video. Well, if you're just tuning in, you didn't miss a ton. The race, for the most part, has been dominated by the 87 of Bryce Rayner. It wasn't until we got to the pit sequence. Randy Sample, with a little bit of short pit strategy, was able to get his Chevy back out to the lead. Bryce Rayner, though, quickly chasing him down. You see that gap almost down to half a second. So we're going to be closing in now on 28 laps to go when we cross the line this time. No caution still to note of either. And for Charles Whitehead, he has got himself back now to just one lap down. Same ordeal for Brad Thacker. So those two battling for the lucky dog, and if a caution were to fly, one of them would indeed get that. And for David Palmer, talked about certainly not the debut that he wanted, currently sitting in that 11th spot, 7 laps down, but had some sort of issue early. He talked about the correction where he didn't miss the start, but maybe he didn't miss the race, I should say, but just not sure what the issue was that got him those first few laps down, and then obviously we saw the second incident. And for Rayner here, I'll tell you what, this isn't a, he can't track him down any faster. This is kind of, I think, a pretty calculated pace here, at which the 87 is chasing down Randy Sample. I think he knows that obviously he's going to be faster and just doesn't want to overuse these tires. Talk about the fact that we got 28 laps to go, and, we know from last season that you never know when that final caution could fall. Maybe it comes out, maybe it doesn't at all. But when it does, you want to be as prepared as you can so that whatever strategy choice you make, you're going to be best suited for it. And again, as I mentioned, for Bryce Rayner here, the pace is plenty there. This is just going to be a matter of kind of taking it easy until you get there, so that when you do get there, you've got something to use when you try to get by him. And you see the gap there just has been steadily closing for Bryce Rayner over the last several laps. Between him and Randy Sample, that is. There you go. Last 2 laps, Sample did hold relatively honest, but I don't look to see that stay the case. Now, after these two, you still got Harley Barletta looking for his first podium of the season in the first race of the season. And John Legger, Jason Ethery. Well, these two, seems like they've had a magnet to each other all night. We've seen a lot of great racing between them. Jason Ethery here, still up a spot from where he started this race at. Let's see if he can grab one more. And for everybody else, seems like the pit stop went pretty good, as you see Legger right there. Not sure if that was an issue or he just got way out of the groove, but he loses that spot to the 34 Nethery. Watch that again here. Does he just get way higher than he wants to here? God, I would assume so. Almost looks like he gets up there in the marbles. And by the time he gets that truck back down, he's already lost the position, so obviously a little bit of a tough break there, but he'll still settle in and still running top 5 with the way it stands at the moment. A couple of quick announcements as well regarding some of the other series for PGR eSports. The PGR 500, it is coming up quick, and boy, we are excited. Remember, $3,000 guaranteed to win. If you go ahead and enter yourself in that today, you will, of course, be eligible. It all starts out at the beginning of the week with the heat races. You got to advance to those to make it, of course, to either the LCQ or the duels before you'll have a shot at the feature, where that $3,000 top payout is not the only payout. Those big payouts go all the way back to the field. $10,000 plus going to be the projected race purse. So certainly looking forward to that event, and that will, of course, be streamed all week long here on PGR eSports. Well, Bryce Rayner has now closed it back into under a quarter of a second. Looks like you got to cue the Jaws music here. He's close. Curious how he sets this move up here and how hard does Sample battle him. I almost think if you're Randy, I'd say you have a better shot if you kind of stay on the outside here and make him go to the inside. Try to hold him down there, but just not sure if Sample's going to have that much of a tire advantage to be able to necessarily make that happen. A big run right here for Rayner. You saw him able to get that drive off of exit. He's going to go wherever he wants right here. The question is, does he go inside, outside, or does he stay in line? Looks like he's content for the moment to stay where he rides. Now he'll go back down the lane lower. Sample with a very similar issue right there to exactly what we saw for Legger. It's almost like if you miss the entry of the corner just a little bit, that truck so easily gets way up the racetrack. And so Sample now falls to second, and for Bryce Rayner, This is kind of like that moment where you hoist the sail. I don't think anybody's catching him if this race goes green the rest of the way. 5-second gap now behind Randy Sample, so it is just these two. And for Sample, I'll tell you what, I think if these guys would have been closer on tire strategy and closer before pit cycles, I think Sample had a shot at his teammate here tonight, but Rayner, he's proven it time and time again. He knows how to save tire, and boy, that just becomes such a crucial ingredient to winning these races, especially when they go green for so long. With that smaller field size, certainly a very high possibility that that does remain the case here. And we talked about the spread. You just saw them go back around the 41 of David Palmer, so he falls another lap down. That now puts him 8 down. You see the only other lap car, really in the near distance, if you will, is going to be Brad Thacker in the 56, who's currently going through 3 and 4. Everybody else still at least about a half a track or more ahead of the leaders. So again, outside of the 56, you look for Bryce Rayner and say, I don't really think there's anything else that would impede his shot of winning here tonight, again, except for some sort of unfortunate caution. And for Randy Sample here, it's all about just trying to hold on to second here the rest of the way. He's fallen now back out of the half a second range, but Harley Barletta is still over 5 seconds back from him, so he's got plenty of breathing room. And then for Jason Ethery, Tyler Meeks, they find themselves separated. Charles Whitehead side by side with the 19 of Legger, but that is not for position, as Whitehead currently finds himself a lap down, so Legger will clear that with no issues. Brian High in 7th, Jason Machot 8th. And there's Charles Whitehead, who position-wise currently sits in 9th. Brad Thacker rounding out the top 10. And so it'll be 16 laps to go when we cross the line this time. It's starting to wind down here in a pretty big hurry. For Rayner right here, really everybody, we talked about the timing of that pit strategy. Next week at Pocono is going to be similar in one aspect to what we had here tonight. That is all the tire saving that you've got to do early on, especially if we have a hot track temp. It just gets so frustrating late in the run when you feel like you're out of stuff to work with. Keep trying to push the truck just a little deeper and usually just not biting and struggling for handling. The truck's getting tight. Randy Sample right here. We watched the onboard view, so just trying to hug that white line, but you can hear just how much throttle time they've had to take out of these trucks. Remember in the first couple laps of this race, we were talking about these guys going about mid to upper 160s through the corner. Well, you saw right there, Sample got down to kind of the mid to low 150s, and it's actually going to get just below 150 right here going through turn 1 and 2. So the handling definitely starting to go away, and I think that's just because the tires are really starting to feel it here. For the 47 of Sample, he's trying to hang on here for the next 15 laps. That gap is really starting to open up now. 2.5 seconds, the distance now between him and Bryce Rayner. Harley Barletta not looking like he's going to catch either. The gap between those two currently sits at over 6 seconds. And you see Jason Ethery in 4th, looking to see if he can chase down his first podium of the season. Still obviously got some work to do as well, but certainly think there's a couple guys here that have a big opportunity tonight to start the season off right. Obviously, Bryce Rayner, knew he was going to be a championship favorite coming into this tonight. And he was going to walk out that way, trying to prove what he can early. But boy, for Randy Sample, Harley Barletta, and even as you go down towards, again, Jason Ethery, last season's champion, I felt like tonight was all about, even if you're not going to come out here and win, when the fields are this small, a lot of times that's okay. Just come out here and try to run up inside at least the top 5. Get as close as you can to a top 3. And keep yourself really close, because when you do that, sometimes it's not always about having to be better than the other guy you're trying to chase in points. Sometimes it's about what Nethery proved last season, which is consistency. Just be there. And that other guy just has to make one mistake, and you've been there consistent the whole season. Sometimes that's enough to take a championship at the end of the year by even only 1 or 2 points. Nethery still with, again, very high hopes to go back-to-back this season. Bryce Rayner, though, you see that one last lap car that it looks like he's going to have to contend with up in the near distance. That's the 56 of Brad Thacker. And so Charles Whitehead had already fallen 2 laps down. This is going to now put Thacker 2 down. So the significance of that is even if we do get a caution at this point, it comes out once he passes the 56th backer, Brad's not going to be able to get back on the lead lap for the remainder of this race. I can almost guarantee it. So it's been a rough start to the season for the 56. So 31 of Carly Barletta here has now shifted his line up a little bit, more so to the middle groove. You kind of notice that dark seam. I'm not sure if Texas is the same, but you always used to hear a lot of drivers mention at a track like, Auto Club, whenever you see those seams, you never want to quite have the right or left side tires riding directly on that seam. You either want to straddle it or stay just below or above it. The 31 of Barletta, when we saw him running that quarter lane up, looked like he was doing just that. So keep an eye, see how he does over the next couple of laps, but I just don't think anybody's going to catch him. I mean, if you're being quite frank, for a lot of drivers, this is the boring part of the race, but it's also the most mentally challenging because it just starts to get so repetitive. Lap after lap, you don't see a ton of trucks just clicking them off, but it only takes one mistake here with 9 laps to go to change everything. For Bryce Rayner, though, I'm thinking he's probably saying, you know what, I'm having fun. I don't think we need a caution. With as many chaotic endings as we had last season, and 87 had to fight through a couple of them. Some of them did go his way, some of them didn't. And here tonight, he is way out in front as we come to just 8 laps remaining. And if you're just tuning in, one more time, you are watching the Grindstone Developments Truck Series live here tonight from Legacy, Texas Motor Speedway in the first race of the season. A lot of hopes coming into this one here tonight. The racing was fantastic early, but as the long run went on, these guys did start to get separated, and ever since then, it's been all about a little bit of pitch strategy, just trying to find something to get that edge here tonight. And the 87 Rayner has had that edge ever since he took the lead. He lost it briefly from Randy Sample, but it did not take him long to get it back. Looks like Bryce maybe shifting his line up here just ever so slightly as well. There's John Legger currently in that 5th spot. Jason Nethery still holding in 4th at the moment. Is Tyler Meeks, who currently sits in 6th. And for Tyler Meeks here, pause on him for just a second before we get to the end of this one. Make sure that we do give him a bit of an extra shout out, because again, for Tyler Meeks, James Harris, the original founder and owner of the league, decided, hey, listen, I'm going to take a break, guys. And unless somebody wants to step up, likely not going to have it next season. And Tyler said, hey, I'll do it. So I was able to get these guys back on another schedule, back for another season. Certainly excited to be broadcasting for him here tonight on PGR eSports, and it'll be interesting to see what that 7 can do, especially as we get to some of the restrictor plate tracks. Again, we talk about those being the wild cards where everybody's got a chance. Bryce Rayner, though, this time he'll be coming to just 5 laps to go. 5 laps away from hoisting the first trophy of the season. And this is that point, too, where you start to really click off every lap mentally. It starts to feel slower and slower because you just want to get to that white flag. If a caution were to come out after that, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your race, but there's an incident before we get to that white flag and we get a caution. We'll rack them up and do it all over again at a very interesting point. So the 87 Rayner here will continue to try to click off these laps here. Talking about Sample in 2nd, and one more view of that track map. Really the only battle going on at the moment. Looks like it's between maybe 5th and 6th, maybe a little bit closer up. They make that 5th and 4th here. See John Legger still within at least eyesight of the man that he's chasing. That, of course, being the 34 of Jason Nethery. Not sure if he's going to have enough time to necessarily chase him down, but it looks like the way it stands, the gap between these two currently stands, looks like somewhere here, about half a second, still at most, I'd say, so definitely still in the realm of possibilities. We're coming to 3 laps. It's going to be 2 laps to go when Bryce Rayner crosses the line next time. So he's going to be just about 1.5 miles away from making this race official once he makes his way off of turn 4. Got to put together 2 more laps. Talked about being perfect all night, but again, the weather has certainly been on the trickier side. 2 laps to go now here at Texas. Bryce Rayner trying to close the deal. 15 seconds now the gap for Harley Barletta. Back to your race leader, for Randy Sample. Almost 6 seconds back, so nobody else in the picture. Bryce Rayner, he's got a wide open straightaway in front. No lap traffic to worry about as he makes his way out of turn 4. The last piece of stress that he's going to have to worry about here tonight is going to get thrown out the window. Starter's got the white flag in the air. 1 lap to go at Texas. First race of the season here tonight for the 87 Rayner. Starts on the outside pole. Had to work his way to the front, but wasn't much work. Got that lead pretty quickly. Sat in it ever since. And we had a pit stop cycle. Came out, Randy Sample had a shot, but even then, Bryce Rayner does what he does best. He found a way back around, got back to the lead. He came up short, winning a championship last season, but he's off to a better start this season. How about 1 for 1? The 87 of Bryce Rayner. He's going to go to victory lane. He wins it at Texas. Randy Sample's going to take home second. About another 7 or 8 seconds back, coming off of turn 4. Harley Barletta, in his first start of the season, come home on the podium as well. What a finish for Bryce Rayner. I know it wasn't the most exciting race that we're going to see all season, but it was certainly one of the most dominant ones. Not one caution, too. We went flag to flag under green. Bryce Rayner going to bring it around here. Probably give us a little bit of a burnout. And sure enough, that's exactly what he's going to do. So we'll see some smoke here from the 87 Rayner as he celebrates across the grass in the infield here at virtual Texas Motor Speedway. So, man, for Bryce Rayner, obviously going to, take the points lead here right away. Now, what I am interested about, and I saw some Discord chatter about this, his teammate, we all remember this name. I think it's Craig Janzak is who it was in Discord, mentioning that he will be back for the rest of the races starting next week. And, of course, last time Janzak was in the series, he won himself a championship. Those two are going to be fun to watch all year. So Rayner continues to celebrate, and as he does so, we're going to take a look at your finishing results here on the night. Again, Bryce Rayner gets his first win of the season and the first race of the season here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway. It's going to be Randy Sample who finishes in that second spot. Good run for Harley Barletta tonight. He takes home third. John Legger back in fourth. Jason Ethery rounds out the top 5, and it's going to be Tyler Meeks finishing in 6th. Brian High picked up a spot from where he started this race at tonight. He finishes in 7th. It's Jason Machad finishing in 8th. Brad Thacker 9th, where Charles Whitehead, not the race he wanted here to start the season. He finishes in 10th, a couple laps down. And then David Palmer, again, rough start for the rookie as well, as he will cap off the night here, finishing in 11th. All right, with that, we are going to go grab your top 3 for interviews. We will be right back at Texas. Stick with us. All right, and we're going to start first here tonight with none other than your race winner, and that is the 87 of Bryce Rayner. Bryce, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I got you, Austin. Sorry about the Discord thingy.
No worries. Well, man, you get the win here tonight, and boy, first one of the season. I got to ask, how does it feel? I know you didn't quite capture a championship last season, but certainly a good way to start the chase for one this season.
Yeah, it feels good. It always does, really. Coming back in the oval stuff. Been a couple months, honestly, since I first, or last got into a truck or a cup car or anything like that. So it's been a while. But last season was fun. It's a new challenge that I had to endure. So finishing, 4th in the points or 3rd, I'd take it, and I'm glad to see some other people get to shine, and just like Jason Nethery and Randy was up there, Thacker was up there in the late model, so it was super fun. But coming over to oval, I knew I had something, especially for the kind of tracks that we have coming up in this season. Texas was one of them. I didn't realize what kind of track tempo we were going to have, but that played a huge factor in how much tire saving you had to do to be able to be good on the long run. So, yeah, super fun, and glad to cap it off with a win, and we'll try to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, it was tough too tonight. We talked about there was a lot of racing early, but yeah, man, once that track temp really started to set in on the tires, things got separated pretty quickly. Now, looking ahead to the rest of the season, and I was mentioning this on the broadcast, I believe, if I was looking at the Discord channels right, one of your teammates, Craig Janzak's going to return next week, and boy, you two, some of the top guys in the series, going to battle it out for a championship. Do you feel like this gives you a little bit of a head start?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think without any DNFs or horrible finishes outside the top, I don't know, 5, 6, or even 10th, I think I might have it locked up, especially if Craig comes back. I know he's coming back. He just was unfortunate that he had previous plans, and when I let him know about FNF tonight, he was like, "Oh, really? That's tonight?" So he'll be back next week, and for the foreseeable future, he's going to be a tough competitor. I mean, Randy's already a tough competitor, so it's probably going to be us three. Jason's quick. John was quick tonight. Harley. I mean, we have some quick guys in here. It just depends on who can master the long run better. I know I'm pretty good on the long run. I think I have an inch on Craig with the long run stuff. Just as long as I can, be in front of him most of the time. That maybe we'll finish 1-2 or, however it pans out. But we got some good tracks coming up next week. I'm looking at the schedule, so super excited for some of these tracks, and I think I've got a good shot to maybe beat him this time.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch, that's for sure. And Bryce, before we let you head out here tonight to celebrate your first win of the season, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Yeah, just want to thank you for putting on the broadcast. I don't know how much you're doing this season at all, but appreciate you coming on here and broadcasting these on PGR for us and Grindstone Developments and everybody who likes to tune in and watch, family members, friends, anything like that. Next, want to give a shout out to Tyler Meeks. He's been going up and over to get this season rolling and to take over for James. I know James is out. I don't know for how long, but Tyler has taken over, and a couple other people are helping around. So kudos to him, and hopefully we have a really, really good season, and I think we will. I think lastly, Team Contis and Performance. For the oval side, as much as I can run, they help tremendously. Oval side is great. Road side, Digital Sim Sports, Martin PC, Grid and Go as well. Just got into a new setup shop over there, so tremendous job for those guys over there, and working my way on the road side too. So can't wait to get back at it next week, and hopefully we'll go back to back.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, Bryce, congrats on the first win of the first race of the season, and we will see you back out here next week.
Yeah, sounds good, Austin. Thank you.
All right, now that's going to bring us up to your second place finisher here tonight, the 47 of Randy Sample, another one of the Team Conti Sim Performance drivers. And Randy, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good. Well, you finished second here tonight, but boy, looked like you made the bold strategy call. Did you feel like that was maybe your only shot at trying to chase down the 87?
Yeah, I knew I couldn't do the same thing he did. Just had to try something. Once I got running, he caught me. I didn't have nothing left in right front, and then we were pretty close on fuel, so just kind of had to ride it out and take second.
Yeah, and still obviously a good finish. Set you up pretty good here early in the going regarding, of course, the championship at the end of the year. But, you look to next week, we go to Pocono, completely different racetrack from what we started with here tonight. What kind of adjustments do you have to make to kind of get yourself in the mindset of Pocono? And do you feel like you've got a chance to maybe grab your first win next week?
Yeah, I think I'm usually pretty decent at Pocono. I think it's going to be a tire game again, and got to make sure I get some practice in this week. It seems like it's been quite a while since any of the series have been out to Pocono, so
Certainly
get in some practice and see what we got.
Yeah, I was going to say it's certainly going to be interesting to watch, but boy, I'll tell you what, Randy, we saw how good you were, especially towards the end of the season in the late model cars, and here tonight in the trucks, you're picking up right where you left off there. So before we let you head out, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out for a good second place finish?
I just want to give Bryce good congratulations, and he drove a flawless race, and everybody else for showing up tonight. Thank Tyler for taking over the league, and PGR and you for putting a show on.
And Randy, thank you for talking to us once again. Congrats on the runner-up finish here tonight, and we will see you next week at Pocono.
All right, see you, man. Thanks.
All right, now that's going to bring us up to your final podium finisher here tonight, and that is the 31 of Harley Barletta. Harley, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Show on.
Yes, sir.
Well, man, it's been a little while since we've seen you, but boy, certainly did not miss much. Great start to the season here tonight with the third place finish. What more, though, do you think you might have needed to try to go chase down the top two?
I don't know, like a 4,000 I rating.
Yeah, fair enough. It seemed that way tonight. Experience definitely played a role, especially as we got, towards the longer portion of the run. But, early on, obviously we saw you hanging tough. Do you feel like there was any sort of adjustments that you could have made throughout the race in terms of trying to save a little bit of tire? What did it feel like?
It was super, super loose for whatever reason. Didn't matter where you ran. It was loose for a little bit. Then it got really tight at the end, and you just push and push and push. Like, even if you added brake bias, it would just make that loose condition worse, and you'd probably just spin out eventually.
Well, you still managed to bring it home in third tonight nonetheless. But, looking at the schedule, we've obviously got a mix of some more technical tracks and then some wild cards in the season. How do you feel about your chances of going after this championship, knowing that you're well in the mix here, even though we've only completed, one race so far? Do you have any tracks circled on the schedule for where you can maybe grab a couple wins this year?
Nah, sadly, I think this might be the only one I run, but I might run a couple more. We'll see.
We'll hope for it. But hey, nonetheless, if you could only run one, best way to do it, Harley. You finished third here tonight. So before we let you head out, is there anyone you could want to thank or shout out?
Yeah, big shout out to you. Big shout out to everyone in this league. We'd have a lot of fun in here. It was a green flag race, and can't ask for more, right?
Yeah, I certainly can't. Harley, thank you for talking to us. Congrats on that third place finish. And hopefully we'll see you out here at least a couple more times throughout the season.
Yeah, man, appreciate you.
All right, there you go. Harley Barletta, third place finisher here tonight. Well, certainly a bit of a different start to the season over what we've had the last couple. All green flag the entire way, and also a dominant performance from the 87 of Bryce Rayner. That is going to round out our coverage here tonight from Texas Motor Speedway. We'll be back next week from the Tricky Triangle Pocono Raceway, and we'll see who can get themselves crowned potentially their first win of the season, or if Rayner can make it back-to-back. Either way, we've got a great season ahead for these guys, and I hope that you will join us here for it. As for tonight, that'll do it for myself, Austin Green, here on PGR eSports. And as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, have a good night.